guys, today we are going to be listening to his story. I hope you guys like it.
Japan for a trivia game show, but when I walked out on stage, there was no podium, just a sumo ring. I pulled up the email, and my heart sank, because my translation app had gotten one word wrong, and now I was stuck here. I shook my head and yelled, "No way I'm fighting sumo!" Then the host shouted into his mic, and my app read it out. Survive 60 seconds against our undefeated champion. Win $10,000. Wait, you said $10,000? I'd spent my last savings on the flight, so I wiped my eyes and let them wrap me into a sumo diaper. The lights dropped, and the avalanche walked out. He was 400 pounds, slapping his belly twice and roaring with his eyes squeezed shut while the whole crowd screamed with him. I stood there in my crooked diaper and cried even more, thinking I was about to die to a man who closes his eyes to celebrate. The bell rang, and his first charge launched me into the front row, but the clock was still running, so 3 grandmas shoved me back in. So I ran in circles just trying to escape while the crowd howled. But then I noticed something. Every time he closed in to finish me, he stopped and celebrated first. 2 slaps, the roar, eyes squeezed shut. So I stopped running, because for 2 whole seconds, the biggest man in Japan couldn't see me. The clock hit 20 seconds, the crowd started chanting for me, and the avalanche's face went dark red. He backed all the way up, and the host screamed, "Nobody has ever survived the final charge." My heart was slamming, because 1 second early, and he'd open his eyes and flatten me. He slapped his belly twice, roared with his eyes squeezed shut, and charged. I stepped sideways. 400 pounds of showboat thundered past me, and out of the ring, 1 giant foot slamming into the clay. The buzzer sounded, the building went silent, and the host grabbed my arm and screamed, "Ring out!" The avalanche sat there blinking, because the only match he'd ever lost, he lost with his eyes closed. They handed me a giant check, so I typed, "Thank you for having me on my phone," but what my app said into the mic was, "I'll be back next week." The crowd went insane, and the host booked the rematch before I could type another word. Now I fight sumo wrestlers every Friday night, and I still don't know how to say no in Japanese. My friends and I were in the backyard blasting my older brother's exclusive Nerf blaster when he ripped it out of my hands and shoved me like he always does. "You're too much of a even hold this. Get your loser friends out of here. I'm telling Mom you stole it." My friend's face,
Bro, get him off.
so I yelled, "I'm not a baby. I can shoot better than you." He smirked and pointed at a tiny can on the fence across the yard. "Fine, hit that in 1 shot and you can keep the blaster. Miss, and your friends are banned for good." And I'm telling Mom. He tossed me the blaster, laughing, because he knew I'd never made a shot like that in my life. My friends gathered behind me, hyping me up as I raised the blaster and lined up the tiny can across the yard. I took a slow breath and steadied my aim, dead on it, and I smiled, knowing I was finally about to prove him wrong. But the second my fingers squeezed the trigger, my brother shoved me hard in the back, and the dart flew way off to the side, sailing toward the fence. He burst out laughing as I hit the dirt. "You're pathetic. I knew a little baby like you couldn't do it." My friends erupted, screaming that he cheated, but he didn't care. He just cupped his hands and yelled for Mom while waving them off. "Get out of here. You're all banned losers." Then he ripped the blaster out of my hands and leaned down over me. "You'll never prove me wrong." But then one of my friends started jumping up and down, screaming, "He's a goat! He's the goat!" My brother smirked and puffed out his chest. "Yeah, I know I am." "Not you, you idiot, your brother." My brother spun around, and his face went pale. My dart had ricocheted off the fence post and stuck dead center on the can. His own shove is what landed the shot. "That doesn't count." Right then, the back door opened, and Mom came out. "Someone called me." My brother opened his mouth, but I stood up and pointed at him. He shoved me on the ground and called all my friends losers. Mom marched over, grabbed him by the ear, and dragged him inside, grounding him as he flailed his arms and cried. I turned to my friends and held out the blaster. Turns out I only needed 1 shot to prove him wrong. I made 1 wrong move with my pickaxe, and the entire cave started to collapse around me. I was trying to recreate Minecraft game IRL, but at this moment I realized that real life doesn't have respawn. I ran back toward the light of the exit. I was nearly there when a giant boulder fell from the ceiling. It grazed my nose as it crashed to the ground. I stopped myself just centimeters away from death. The exit was completely blocked. More stones started to fall, and I was forced to run deeper into the cave. When the dust finally settled, I had no idea where I was. I had no map and no light except for my cell phone. I checked the battery, 5%. I had to find a way out, and fast. I walked deeper into the cave, searching for anything. My battery was at 3%. I had maybe 10 more minutes of light before I would die in complete darkness. To my shock, I found the body of a dead miner. He was wearing a backpack. Well, whatever's in there, I needed more than him. Inside was a lighter and 3 candles. Perfect. This buys me maybe an hour of light. I lit the first candle and tried to retrace my steps back to the entrance to figure out a plan. By the time I reached it, the first candle was burned out. I lit the second one, but a drop of cave water splashed down and put it out instantly. It wouldn't relight. I had one more candle in the bag, one chance to make something happen. I lit the third candle. The wick started burning fast and hot. Unlike the other candles, this one had 3 letters written on the side. TNT. This was no candle. This was dynamite, and the wick was burning up quickly. I tossed it at the boulder in front of the entrance and dove behind a stalagmite. I counted 3, 2, 1. The sound of thunder filled the cave with a blinding flash, and after the rock settled, I climbed out into the warm sunlight and said to myself, just like the video game. The school bully kicked down a 6'9" freshman, and when his tray fell, he picked up the spaghetti and squeezed it over his head. The best part about this is you can't do crap about it, Giraffe. But this freshman towered over him and said, "What did you just say to me?" The entire cafeteria went silent because no one had ever stood up to Logan. Logan smirked. "Be careful what you say next, circus freak. My dad practically owns this school." But the new kid just smirked. "Oh yeah, what's his name?" He puffed his chest out. "John Donaldson." The new kid chuckled. "His boss's name is Liam McManus, right?" "I know because that's my dad's name." For a second, Logan didn't say anything, and all of us had our mouths wide open because no one had ever seen him be quiet before. The new kid leaned in and whispered, "By the way, my dad says yours is a little bitch. Like father, like son." He suddenly went red with anger and started crashing out. "How effing dare you!" The kid's hand closed over Logan's whole head, and he lifted him in the air like it was nothing. Logan started kicking at nothing. "Put me down!" The new kid smiled, and while still carrying Logan, he crouched down to the tray of spaghetti on the floor, picked it up, and smeared it on Logan's face. Logan kept kicking while being suspended in the air, and his sweatpants fell to his ankles to reveal SpongeBob.
Please. No, he's getting...
Monsters. Every kid Logan had ever bullied was now laughing at him with their phones out. The new kid smiled. "The best part about this is you can't do crap about it, little man." I walked into the school gym with a plastic gun and fake blood covering my shirt, ready to win the annual costume contest. I saw kids dressed in mummies and skeletons, but then a kid stumbled in wearing just jeans and a plain white shirt. I tapped him with my fake gun and asked why he entered without a costume, but when he turned around, his entire face was gray. He was clutching his stomach and dropped to the floor, and blood instantly began pooling under him. I gripped my head, wondering if this was real, but then I saw a bullet wound in his back. A girl screamed, and suddenly every head snapped towards me. They saw me standing over a bleeding out kid, holding a gun with blood on my shirt. "He shot him!" someone yelled as a teacher crouched behind a student to call 911. I instantly threw my hands up. "It's fake! My gun is a costume! This wasn't me!" I held my pistol up to prove it, but everyone instantly started climbing over each other to get away from me. I didn't know what to do, wondering if there was a real shooter in this building, and just dropped down and gripped the kid's shoulder. "Please get up. Tell them I didn't shoot you." But he wouldn't move even when I shook him. I couldn't hear him breathing, and his blood kept spreading under my knees. My hands trembled as I threw my plastic gun across the floor, and suddenly I felt kids tackle me and pin me to the ground, twisting my arms. That's when the doors slammed open. 2 cops ran in while teachers and students screamed I'd shot someone. They drove their knees into my back, and I cried as the cuffs clicked shut behind my back. I was still thrashing and screaming I didn't do this, when suddenly I heard clapping. The principal was on his feet, grinning, while everyone stared at him horrified. He ran towards me and wrapped a gold medal around the neck of the kid on the ground. "What a costume. This is why my son is the best." He smiled. Suddenly the kid sat up, alive and well. My jaw dropped as he spat an empty bag of fake blood out of his mouth, and when I looked closer, I saw the bullet in his backup was just makeup. He stood up and raised his hand. My costume was to pretend to be shot, but the cops uncuffed me and immediately cuffed him instead. Pretending to be shot at school was also your crime. You're coming with us. I rubbed my grandpa's dusty lamp and yelled, "I wish Amelia loves Ian more than anything else in the world." This was my last hope to get together with my crush Amelia after being rejected by her 6 times. I threw the lamp away and jumped around the room in celebration because Amelia was now guaranteed to fall in love with Ian, or in other words, me. So the next morning, I strutted into school with my head held high, already picturing her obsessing over me by lunch. But as soon as I sat down in my class, our teacher walked in with a new transfer kid who was 6 feet tall and looked twice as attractive as me. He introduced himself. "What's up, everyone? My name is Ian," and my pencil froze mid-sentence because that was my name too. Even the teacher pointed it out. "Well, Ian can sit next to Ian then." Other students laughed as he walked his long legs and took the desk next to mine. This kid was stealing my identity in broad daylight, and I wanted to knock his teeth out, but I saw Amelia glance back at us, so I sat up straighter because the wish was clearly kicking in already. All I had to do now was meet Amelia during recess. At recess, I finally spotted Amelia down the hallway, so I waved frantically, certain she was about to fall in love with me, but she sprinted right past me and leapt into the other Ian's arms, screaming, "Ian, I love you, Ian." My wish had come true. Word for word, she loved Ian more than anything else in the world, just the wrong one. My mouth fell open in shock, and I tipped face first into the recycling bin and stayed there with my legs sticking out while the school cheered on the new couple. I was trying to bicycle kick a soccer ball in my living room when it flew straight into my mom's face. I dove for it but caught air, and it shattered on the floor. My hands flew to my mouth. That was Grandma's vase, given to Mom before she died, and Mom had told me 100 times not to touch it. Mom was upstairs washing her hair, so I grabbed the super glue and tried to piece it together, but the cracks spread like a spider web and it fell apart. I knew I was cooked. I wrapped the pieces in paper towels, shoved them in the trash, and put a candle on the empty shelf. I dropped onto the couch with my Switch as Mom came down. "You hungry? I'm starting dinner." "Yeah, I'm starving." She walked toward the kitchen but stopped at the shelf, tilting her head. "Where's Grandma's vase?" Sweat shot down my face. "Wasn't it always like that?"
No!
The candle. It was right here this morning. Maria came today, didn't she? Maria was our cleaning lady, and Mom was already calling her back. I almost told the truth twice before Maria got there. Maria walked back in, still in her cleaning clothes, and Mom led her to the empty shelf. "My grandma's vase is gone. You're the only other person who was in here." Maria's hands shook. "Ma'am, I swear to God I didn't even go near that shelf. I'm sorry, Maria. Pack your bags. I can't have someone in my house I can't trust." Maria stood there waiting for someone to say something. She picked up her bag and walked past me to the door. She didn't look at me, and I didn't look at her either. The door closed behind her, and the house went quiet. Maria had 3 kids. She'd shown me their school pictures every time she came over. I'm 27 now, and I still haven't told my mom what really happened that night, but I've carried the guilt with me the entire time. I tell myself I was just a kid back then who didn't know better. I was at my girlfriend's family cookout, meeting everyone for the first time, when her dad handed me a chicken leg. Best chicken you'll ever have. Dig in.
Gosh,
I
dang it.
stared at it in horror because it was pink.
Yo, why is my phone being like that, bro? Come on. Please, bro. Come on. Accept it. Yay. My time to get
Dripping with
revenge.
blood. I wanted to make a good impression, so I laughed nervously. "Is this a joke?" Very funny, but the whole family just stared at me, blank. He puffed out his chest. "It's not a joke. Are you gonna eat it or not?" My girlfriend grabbed my arm, smiling.
Time to actually
"Babe,
try.
if you eat it, he'll love you." But I felt my stomach turn, and I had no idea what to do. I scratched my neck. "I mean, it just looks a little raw." His smile dropped, and he leaned right into my face. "You calling me a bad cook, huh? 40 years grilling in this backyard, and some
Yeah.
kid tells me it's raw?" The whole family shook their head.
Yeah.
He thinks he knows better than Dad.
I
This is the type of
obviously
man you
just
bring into
slowed
this
down
house.
for some
Her mom's
reason.
gone. Her brother slammed the table. "That's hella disrespect, bruh." Even my girlfriend's smile twisted. "You're embarrassing.
See, I
Just
slowed-
eat it." I looked
I
at
must
the
have
bloody meat
glitched.
and wondered if I was
Because
crazy.
it literally
Then they all
hit me
stood up
back.
and circled my chair, chanting, "Eat it! Eat it! Eat it!" My girlfriend
Oh.
grabbed the chicken and started moving it towards my lips. "Open up!" The smell of raw meat hit my nostrils. My stomach lurched, and I finally had enough. I smacked the chicken out of her hand, and it flung across the yard. "Hell no! This chicken is straight out the farm. I'm not eating it." The whole family went dead silent. I expected them to kick me out, but then the dad slowly started clapping his hands. "Finally, a man with a spine." He grinned at my girlfriend. "It was a test to see if you were a real man."
How long can you pretend to be weak when you're the most dangerous thing in the room? What happens when
Think-
someone forces
put it
you to
up.
choose between your
Aw,
cover and
man.
someone's life? I found out today. Professor Dell stood in the center of the ring, built like a man whose hobby was breaking people and whose day job was the same thing. 30-second survival.
Oh
test.
my
Any
lord.
student who lasts 30 seconds against me without
I don't
losing-
care.
The last 5 guys
The
ate,
AI
but you
stories are
passed.
crazy
The mom
right
gave
now.
me a big squeeze, and her brother reached for a high five, but I stood up, backing toward the gate. "You all deserve to go to a psych ward. I'm getting out of here." As I bolted, the whole family chased after me, and the dad ran behind crying, "Come back. He's the best man we've ever had." My girlfriend stood in my doorway holding my laptop open. "So when were you
Ooh.
planning to tell me about your other Twitch account?" On the screen was my face, my name, and a profile I had never made. She clicked through messages from girls calling me cute, and every heart emoji made me look guiltier. I don't stream, I said. She turned the laptop toward me. Apparently you do. Then she stepped back from me. I'm not dating someone who flirts with girls behind my back. She opened the payment history, and my profile picture showed up beside tips sent to the same streamers again and again. The comments were worse, asking girls to say my username, calling them pretty, promising to come back to their streams. I stared at the screen. Even I knew how bad it looked. I swear that's not me. My hands moved too fast opening my bank app. Look, I don't have secret streamer money. I barely have sandwich money. She looked at the red balance and shook her head. Yeah, because you sent it all to random streamer girls. I froze, because somehow my proof had made me look broker and guiltier. She looked at the fake account one more time, then started closing my laptop. I'm done. Before the screen shut, a notification popped up, going live in 5. The stream opened on a game lobby with no camera, just a voice asking.
One thing you never want to
My
replay
girlfriend's
someone.
hand froze on the laptop. That sounds like my brother. She pulled out her phone and dialed, and a ringtone buzzed through the stream. One sec, my sister's calling. Her brother answered, his voice coming from her phone and my laptop at the same time. Hey, what's up? She gripped the phone. Why is my boyfriend's face on your account? On screen, his game character walked straight into a wall, and for the first time all night, I felt the accusation lift off me. He whispered into the mic, oh no, and the stream went black. His voice stayed on the phone. I heard girls at school say he was cute, and streamer girls answer cute guys faster. My girlfriend closed the laptop, grabbed her keys, and looked at me for the first time like she believed me. I owe you an apology, after I ruined my brother's life. When my dad found out he was refereeing my soccer game, he told me in the tunnel, I'm not playing favorite son, don't expect special treatment. I smiled because I actually wanted a fair game, but then the other team's striker Mason elbowed my ribs in the air, and I fell. But dad just gave me a yellow card for diving and gave the ball to Mason. I thought he'd just missed the foul, but next time I had the ball, Mason kicked me in the shin. I went down, clutching the already forming bruise, but dad just shrugged and said, I told you I'm not playing favorites. That's when Mason whispered in my ear, I'm gonna injure you and he won't even call it. My blood ran cold, and the rest of the game Mason kicked my calves and dragged my hair. Dad never blew his whistle. I remember seeing the bruises covering my shins and getting so angry I wanted to leave. But then Mason's slide tackled so hard I heard a crunch. I instantly dropped and screamed in pain. Sure, my legs were broken, but Dad finally blew his whistle. Foul. He showed Mason a yellow card, and Mason flailed his arms. That's not a foul. You're only saying that because he's your son. I remember laughing at how stupid that was because he'd been fouling me all game. But then suddenly, I saw Mason's dad in the crowd. You're cheating, ref. He was pointing at my dad. That wasn't a foul. He leapt the barricade and started running towards us with his fists clenched.
Come on!
My dad had drawn before anyone could react and stood over him. How's that for a foul? My boy isn't fouling anyone.
He
Stop
is
helping
playing
your son.
good defense, not gonna lie.
When I
I don't know
looked
why
at
I
dad
said
on the
that.
ground, I got angry and stood up despite my bones crunching. Your son's been injuring me all game, you idiot. Don't touch my dad. I shoved Mason's dad in the chest. His eyes went wide, and he cocked his arm back to swing at me. But then security guards tackled him. They dragged him off screaming, while Mason shouted, let him go. When dad stood up, he immediately ordered Mason off the pitch. Mason stormed off stomping his cleats. I laughed hard, but then dad turned to me and pulled out a red card. That's for assaulting a fan. You're out of the game too. My smile dropped. I was nearly knocked off my feet when the mortar shell hit the battlefield I was running across. My base was still at least a quarter mile away, and I had to get back with the intel I gathered on my recon mission. Just then, my leg was caught by something. I looked down. It was another soldier. He took the full blast from the mortar, and his uniform had been burned to black ash. I picked him up and carried him the rest of the way to the base. When we arrived, I gave them my report. The enemy was closing in, and fast. Good report, but that's not the only thing you brought us, Sergeant. Turns out the soldier you brought in was an enemy messenger, and I want you to get information out of him to stop the incoming attack by any means necessary. I went down to the soldier's holding cell. He was already strapped to rack for torture. I grabbed a bat covered in barbed wire from the table. I just wanted to scare him. I didn't think I had it in me to hurt this man. Tell me what I want to know, and I'll take this easy on you. Your troops are almost here, and they have to be stopped. Fine.
He sucks.
Tell me.
Where is he? Where is he?
The hard
Where is he?
way. I ripped his shirt off and prepared to strike, hoping he would say something before I had to.
No,
On his
he's
chest
just
was a
looking at the goal like,
three
what did I just
names.
do?
I stopped myself. My wife and daughters, he said. I just want to go home to them. I put the bat down. Beating prisoners just wasn't me, and it sure wasn't
That's
what I was
crazy,
fighting
though.
a war for. I decided to be a human before being a soldier that day. I released the prisoner and helped him escape despite the risk. Before he disappeared into the woods, he turned and said, thanks for helping me. Take this in return. He handed me a slip of paper. If you broadcast this code, it will stop the enemy attack and they'll retreat. Then maybe we can both go back home. The enemy attack had already begun, so I sprinted back to the broadcast tower and sent out the code. The shelling stopped, the enemy retreated, and hundreds of lives were spared. My pregnant pregnant client fell and started giving birth in the courtroom, and the prosecutor
Yo, that's
birth to my
crazy.
ex-fiance's son.
Whoa! That ad just came
Mother
out of
made me
nowhere.
leave days before.
yelled she was manipulating the jury. She ran up behind me while I was closing my law office for the night and tapped my shoulder. I'm 8.5 months pregnant and my trial is tomorrow. They said they'll take my baby away. Please do something. She said she was homeless and had robbed baby formula and diapers at gunpoint. I told her, I'll represent you. Next morning, we walked into the courthouse and the prosecutor saw Nadia struggling to walk and immediately smiled like he'd already won. First, he showed the jury the security footage of Nadia holding the store clerk at gunpoint, asking them, is this the kind of woman who deserves to raise a child? He called Nadia a criminal, a thief,
Okay.
and said her baby
That'll
was just
be
a
it for
convenient
today,
excuse
guys.
to commit
Thank
the crime.
you.
I tried